Welcome to Norse Code, the #1 podcast for your Minnesota Vikings. I am your host and producer. My name is James Pagoshnik. Thank you guys so much for listening. And at the other end of the tin cannon string, we have our analyst and co-host. You know him from numerous blogs and podcasts around the internet, most notably from theathletic.com. He is Mr. Useful Human, Arif Hassan. Arif, welcome to the impromptu Zoom live show call extravaganza 2020 Bucs preview?
Bucs preview, yeah. I'm sure there's other names that we can add to it. Hey, man, what's going on?
Not too much. We have plenty of stuff to go over. We are doing this over Zoom, so you'll notice that the call sounds a little different than normal. But we have a quote unquote studio audience of sorts with us to be a part of this. So, want to thank all of the people who have joined us over Patreon. Thank you guys so much. Really is appreciated. We have a number of people who I recognize over, and I've said their names, whether it be through the mailbag or through you guys' donations. Thank you guys so much for being on here. This is so cool. This is about as close to a live show as we're going to get this year for obvious reasons. This was going to be the show that we were going to do live this year because we figured this show would actually be interesting and this game was going to be interesting and potentially mean something. And we wanted to see how many Tampa Bay strip clubs we could get kicked out of this year. And sadly, we can't find that out until next year. But before we start, just want to again thank you guys so much for listening, for being a part of Norse Code and being a part of this live show as well. If you guys listen to the show, hear value in what we produce every week, twice a week during the regular season, you can help contribute to the show. You can go to patreon.com/NorseCode. You can access the bonus material that we put out every week. This is your bonus episode. We have all sorts of, this is your access, guys, this week. So this is your bonus episode that you guys are getting here. But want to thank a specific person for joining the Patreon this week. Delta BC Dad has joined up on Patreon. Thank you so much for joining. You have supported us in the past, and I just want to thank you for joining us on the show this week. So, again, thank you for joining. Also, if you'd like to donate to the show, you can do so at paypal.me/NorseCode, or you can go to Threadless. We have our merch. Not the image that I currently am in front of, but for those not on the call, the Christmas image that Drawplay Dave made of the new Arif, that is my background picture for this, and I am going in and out of it in a very creepy way.
Right. So to note, the image has multiples of my face on a Christmas wreath. And James has positioned himself such that he is directly in front of one of my faces. And because it's a Zoom call, as he fades in and out of the background, it goes in and out of my face, which is definitely not unsettling and totally normal and easy for me to deal with.
Yep, we're through the looking glass here, folks. So we have our merch up over at norsecode.threadless.com. If you are interested in such silliness, the Norse Code t-shirts are out, as well as the Norse Code baby onesies, the cell phone cases, and all of that. So again, if you're interested in such things, you can head over to norsecode.threadless.com over in the collections section. But let's get into the actual show itself, because we do have plenty of things to go over. And we're going to do something a little different, because normally on the Thursday show, Reef brings on a guest and goes 45 minutes to an hour on a number on basically every aspect of the matchup. We're not bringing on a guest this week. It's actually just going to be me interviewing a Reef. So I do this once a year lately. So we're going to see how we'll see if I've lost my chops on this. So the first thing I want to ask is about Tom Brady, because you can't talk about the Bucs without talking about Tom Brady. And sorry, there's a question that said no guests. So what does that make us? Aw. And no, this will not be a Seahawks preview, but this. So you can't talk about the Bucs without talking about Tom Brady for obvious reasons, and when it comes to Tom Brady, it really does appear that as Brady goes, so do the Bucs. And if Brady finds himself in a situation where he's going to be overthrowing his receivers by 5, 10, 15 yards, that's going to be the sort of day that the Bucs have. Also, if he finds everyone in stride, and also if, say, Gronkowski starts to be useful and not a blocking tight end, that's how the team is going to go. The team's going to have a successful day. What exactly has been going on with Brady this year, and is this something that is this a sort of slide that the Bucs can break against the Vikings?
Yeah, so I think a lot of this has to do with the way that the Buccaneers kind of design the tertiary parts of their offense. So one of the issues that they've had is Brady versus blitzes, which is actually kind of a unique thing, right? Because typically he's been quite good against the blitz, and you take a look at his numbers from 2016 to 2019 against the blitz, he's typically been better or about even against the blitz than he is without the blitz. He's almost like perfectly efficient between the two. And so blitzing Brady doesn't actually typically do very much unless you find yourself getting pressure a little bit more often than you usually do when you blitz. But ever since he's been in Tampa Bay, so this year, he's actually been significantly worse against the blitz. Basically, every kind of metric falls off: yards per attempt, adjusted yards per attempt, completion rate, touchdown percentage, interception percentage. They've all been worse against the blitz. And I think a lot of this has obviously not a ton to do with Brady being worried about pressure, but more with him not being on the same page, how the offense should react to the blitz. I'm going to be going into it in a lot more detail on a piece for The Athletic, but really the primary issue is that the way that they responded to blitzes in New England was significantly different. So they would usually just kind of shift protections a little bit, make sure that Brady was always kind of accountable to the outside person. And then he would just kind of go through his progressions a little bit quicker and hit somebody that was going to be open on one of their option routes, because it's a very option route heavy offense, which for people who are unfamiliar with option routes is just essentially if a receiver sees a defense doing one thing or the other, the route will change based off of that. So if a slot receiver sees their primary defender with inside leverage, they run a quick out. If they see the opposite, they might run a quick in or a stick route or something like that. And most offenses have what are called side adjustments or option routes, but the Brady offenses in New England were notable for having more option routes than any other offense in the NFL by a significant margin. And those option routes were able to take care of blitzes without having to have a specific blitz call. And everybody kind of had to be on the same page. It's one reason that receivers had such a difficult time catching on in New England. In Tampa Bay, it's not really the same thing. There is a sight adjustment against blitzes, but they're like hot routes, and you don't really adjust the offensive line in the same way against blitz looks. So when Brady identifies that a blitz is coming, he doesn't change the protection to the same degree or in the same way that he did in Tampa Bay. He has to be aware that somebody is going to be kind of responsible for the blitz as a receiver, usually an inside receiver, like a tight end, maybe a slot receiver, and they'll kind of enter into open space in the hot route. And for that to happen, he has to be on the same page with all of his receivers. And the way that playbook is structured and the amount of time that they've had, which obviously wasn't very much because of the offseason, that just isn't there. And so teams are kind of figuring out that, normally you don't blitz Brady, but this year, blitzing Brady seems to work out a lot better. Most of his turnovers have actually occurred on blitzes this year. And it's a big part of the way that his offense is kind of tailed off. The last 4 games, his passer rating has been under 100 in 3 of the last 4. He's taken sacks in all 5 of the last 5 games, whereas kind of the beginning of the year, he's very good at avoiding sacks. He's very good at getting rid of the ball quickly. And he's thrown interceptions in 3 of the last 4 games. And a lot of this just has to do with teams being a lot more comfortable and willing to blitz. So I think that's a big part of it. Some of it's, he's very reliant on throwing to running backs when there's the possibility of a negative play. One of the ways that he avoids sacks so readily is to get to the bottom of his progression really quickly and throw to running backs. Now, throwing to running backs is a negative play. They've been dropping the ball a lot, and so that's not available there too. He had a 95% catch rate on catchable throws to running backs in New England. He's got an 80% catch rate on catchable balls thrown to running backs in Tampa Bay, and so that's also a big part of it, and that puts them on 3rd and long a lot more often than you see than he was in New England. So there's there's a couple of problems. I mean, the receivers aren't playing up to their potential either. That's a big part of it. And just making sure that everybody's on the same page in a new offense. That's just, there's some just basic elements of that. That's a part of it too. And hey, he hasn't been able to throw over the middle deep. All of his deep balls are to the sideline where he's got the ability to kind of protect that against interceptions. Whereas over the middle, he just chooses not to throw it that often, and teams are figuring that out too. So a lot of different problems with that offense. But most of them weren't figured out for a good chunk of the year until recently. The problem, of course, is they've now had a bye, and they've been able to kind of figure out a lot of the offensive issues that they've had and possibly use the bye to kind of adjust for it. So the Vikings might be getting the short end of the stick there, which I guess is nothing new.
How is Leonard Fournette still on this team? How has he not been ordered by Brady to be fired into the sun?
He has better hands than Ronald Jones, actually. Like, he's a better receiver among the Bucs backs, which maybe tells them about the kind of receiving backs that they've got available to them.
So there's trash and there's trash plus? Like, is that what that is?
And given the choice, you're probably going to take the trash plus, right?
That is...
I don't know. I mean, he's an athletic freak. Bruce Arians loves those, so he's got a shot on the roster, I guess.
So... It is the sort of thing where you look at, okay, well, you end up going with the offseason that everyone had this year. Okay, Brady ends up going to a new team. Brady is used to doing this. Brady's used to doing that. And Arians and the GM are supposed to figure out, kind of like make it so that it's as comfortable for their star quarterback as possible. Do you think they did a good enough job in the draft in order to like accomplish that, or is it just a situation where they just weren't prepared for it because of things like COVID and all of that? Because this team had all the I'm not saying this team kind of went into the season the way that Miami did for basketball when they ended up getting Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, and Chris Bosh all at the same time. And then, they make the finals run, but they come short because they weren't ready for it. It seems like this team is very much not ready for it.
So before I answer this question, side note, Don from Ohio needs Cooper Kupp in his fantasy matchup with Eric Thompson. Cooper Kupp just got stuffed at the goal line on a flat route that he definitely should have scored on fourth down. The Rams go for it, and Jared Goff steals Cooper Kupp's touchdown. That's hilarious to me. Jared Goff, really. Anyway. Sorry. Only a refit of a physical tweet hanging in his house. Yeah, I mean, I got to remind myself it's going to be a day out here. I would say actually the offseason was handled really well for the Bucs. It's just that the Brady offense requires such a high level of precision and cohesion for it to work. They've got really talented receivers. They invested in another really talented receiver in Tyler Johnson. They've got Scotty Miller ahead of them, so they've got really good depth. They've got really good talent at receiver. They obviously invested a tight end. O.J. Howard got injured. They didn't anticipate that, but having Gronkowski, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate, and Brate is good enough to start in the NFL. To have him as a third tight end is just an enormous luxury, and they've got one of the best offensive lines in the NFL too. Donovan Smith is an average-ish, maybe above average left tackle, and he's their worst offensive lineman, and that's a really good place to be. They've got a potential really dominant right tackle in Tristan Wirfs. They've got Ali Marpet, who's playing at possibly an all-pro level, I'd say at a Pro Bowl level. They've got a really good center in Ryan Jensen. So they've got a really great set of offensive linemen, and they've got talent basically at every position on offense except running back. I would say that they handled the offseason really well. It's just that, some quarterbacks or some offenses take a little bit more precision and cohesion than some others. And so we saw that with the Vikings where Kirk Cousins, because he's such a structured quarterback, probably needs a little bit of a preseason. And so the offense got started off pretty slowly for the Vikings. Well, I would say that though we saw a pretty hot start from Brady and the Buccaneers, as teams adjust to what the offense does, the secondary and tertiary checks that are inside that offense require a high level of chemistry and cohesion and everybody on the same page. Whereas Kirk probably just needs chemistry to make sure that everybody's kind of where he needs them to be on his first and second reads. Brady needs everybody to be in kind of the right place as he goes later into his progressions and as people blitz. And so it's a different problem, but kind of the same genesis. So I would say that the Bucs handled it about as well as any team could in terms of an offseason for the offense. And honestly, for the defense, too, there's a ton of talent on that defense. It's just very, very young. But sometimes, it doesn't necessarily work out. You get a ton of talent and it doesn't necessarily cohere. I mean, this team is probably going to be really dominant next year, and it's just going to be very, very good this year. That's maybe the difference.
So we have to talk about his accuracy because that's a big part of the story on Brady this year. And is it more of a situation of the wide receivers just not just like underplaying? Is it a situation of age, or is it something else?
I would say that there's probably a mix of things here. I think, for example, the fact that Brady is not super comfortable throwing deep over the middle specifically is probably an indication that he's kind of aware of some potential physical limitations that prevent him from being that effective. But there's a confluence of factors. Like, so for example, Brady has suffered from a lot more drops than a lot of other quarterbacks have this year. That has a lot less to do with the receivers. I mentioned the running backs, but just for some context. So Mike Evans has about 5 drops this year. Chris Godwin has 2. And in total, there have been 10 drops for wide receivers on 178 catchable passes. So that's about 5.6%. That's just very, very slightly above league average, which is like 5.1%. Evans's drop rate of 9.4% is pretty high then, but everybody else kind of just makes up for it among the receiver core. But if you take a look again at that running back core, they've had 14 drops on only 83 catchable balls. So that's 16.9%.
And you're telling me not all of them are from Leonard Fournette?
Not all of them, no. In fact, he's had just as many drops from Leonard Fournette as he had from Ronald Jones. And Ronald Jones has been kind of the rotational, or the back that they've relied on a lot more pretty recently. Plus, he's fumbled. So I was
going to say, maybe it just seems like that because all of the drops from Fournette seem like they came in the same game.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think he had 2 or 3 drops in one game. But yeah, Ronald Jones has been he's either been really explosive, that 200-yard game, or he's been kind of a liability where he's got a couple of fumbles and a couple of drops. So a lot of it has to do with kind of that running back group more than, a receiver group or anything like that. Still, I would say that, Brady's accuracy is a little bit of a concern. A couple of the picks that he threw against, for example, Kansas City, were not picks that I would have imagined him throwing back in like 2016, for example, kind of these deep sideline throws where it either goes to his receiver or to nobody. He's been kind of a little bit more comfortable underthrowing it. It might also be that, he sees a route or he sees a particular leverage and he thinks, hey, this is a back shoulder throw. And that's where he throws it. And the receiver is just not familiar enough with Brady's tendencies to think, oh, I should be looking right now to see if a back shoulder throw is coming, and they don't. And so that can turn into a pick. That might be part of it too. But I just think that there is potentially that element of age at play. The ball has if you take a look at like kind of the data on ball velocity, it's actually the highest in the NFL. So it's kind of weird to think of it as like his arm strength diminishing. But the ball kind of arcs a lot more this year than it does any other year. Like it just kind of rainbows on these deep throws, and that makes it a lot more pickable. So I don't really know how to cohere the fact that the ball speed coming out of the throw is faster, but he's throwing balls that take a longer time to get to his receivers because he's arcing them when it seems like he doesn't need to if the ball really is coming out that fast. And there's all kinds of dynamics at play, like maybe it's not spiraling the right way and that slows the ball in the air a lot more, so it's not just initial velocity out of the throw or anything like that. But it seems pretty clear that it's taking a lot longer to get to receivers, and that makes it a little bit easier to pick off, and it kind of throws off the timing a little bit. So there's accuracy issues, there's timing issues, there's chemistry issues, and all of these issues might get resolved in a bye week. So who knows if they're even going to be available for the Vikings to exploit.
There also might be a little bit too much air in the balls too. So it's always an option, or always a possibility anyway with Brady stuff. It's just my receivers, I don't know what it is. Throw it up in the air. It just has a little, just a hair too much hang time on it. So Eric Kendricks, is he going to be in or out this week?
Yeah, we don't know. He missed practice today, and I think that is more significant than missing practice on Wednesday. It puts him in a ton of doubt, obviously. The Vikings have been... So I remember back when Barr was a rookie, and even kind of his second year where he was actually quite good, the Vikings were pretty poor against tight ends. But as time has gone on, the Vikings have been very, very good against tight ends. And last year they were really great. This year they've been pretty good, but a lot of that has to do with Kendricks. And so we saw them get victimized by James O'Shaughnessy, who's not like the world's best tight end, last week, in part because they just don't have Kendricks. And so given how much Brady trusts Gronk and how many more targets Gronk has gotten over the past couple of weeks, it seems like that's going to be a pretty big concern if you don't get Kendricks. And then we also saw that the Vikings got gashed in the running game. Kendricks is the best run defending linebacker who is theoretically healthy, right? And so not having Kendricks would be huge. It seems, I would say, worrisome that he didn't practice today, Thursday. And so his status is definitely in jeopardy. And then I think what other injury concern is probably just Kyle Rudolph. I'm going to take a quick look at that injury report, but it didn't seem like there was one other DNP, Alexander Madison. So that's a slight worry. Jeff Gladney is a limited participant, but Irv Smith got back to practice as a limited participant. And then we saw a couple of other names as limited participants: Garrett Bradbury, Riley Reef, DJ Wanham, Ezra Cleveland, and then Brett Jones was a full participant. So the biggest injury worry is Eric Kendricks, followed by Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah, if Kendricks isn't playing, despite how anyone may think about the running game for Tampa Bay, you could have had that same thought about the running game for the Jags, and the Jags still destroyed the defense.
Yeah, in particular as run blockers, like James Robinson has always been pretty good at just kind of generating his own yards, but if he also gets good run blocking ahead of him, he's going to be pretty difficult to stop. And so the fact that those guards were able to get up to the second level and just take out Troy Dye and Todd Davis and especially Eric Wilson, I mean, that was pretty brutal for the Vikings to be able to defend against the run. And I mean, when Tampa Bay's run game is going, it really is going. I mean, like Ronald Jones has had two really remarkable games this year. That a lot of it just has to do with how effective that offensive line is and how he's been able to navigate that. Given how good the Tampa Bay offensive line is, especially at run blocking, I mean, that's a huge worry if Eric Kendricks isn't available.
So the tight ends you'd mentioned before that even their third stringer could potentially start on most teams. What is Gronk doing now? We had joked a number of episodes that he was the highest paid blocking tight end in the league, bar none. And I've actually seen him be used in the passing game somewhat recently. Is he done kind of coasting for this year, or is this something that he's slowly finding his way
so
in?
He's blocking just as much as he did before. He's just getting a ton more targets. So weeks 1 to 5, he blocked on 39.9% of snaps, which is 22 snaps a game or so. Since week 5, he has blocked on 37.6% of snaps, which is virtually identical, or in 21 snaps a game in the games he's finished. He didn't really finish the Saints game, so that doesn't really count. But his targets have gone up significantly. So weeks 1 to 5, he had 19 targets, so it's 3.8 a game. Since then, he's had 42 targets, or 6 per game, including that Saints game, where he had 6 targets in a game that he actually missed a significant portion of. So, his targets have gone up significantly. And I think some of that has to do with the various injuries that Tampa Bay has had to wide receiver, which is something to be concerned about for them going forward, because Mike Evans didn't participate in practice today because of a hamstring injury. So we'll see if he's going to be available. And then also the injury to O.J. Howard. So as their receivers have gone down, there have been more targets to Gronkowski. And not a ton of concurrent increases in targets to Antonio Brown, who is there but has not made a huge impact or anything like that.
No, he kind of has the same view, or he kind of has the same look to him as Des Bryant does at this point.
Yeah, well, except I guess he was able to actually get on the field.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what are you going to do about that?
I guess Des just had 2 consecutive negative tests too. He's got to feel bitter.
What was so? Just as a quick aside, they moved him to the COVID list after he had tested positive today.
He was never moved to the COVID list, if I remember.
Was that it?
They just pulled him out of the game. So he had 2 inconclusive tests, one the night before, one the day of. So they ran his inconclusive test again while he was warming up. It came back positive, so they pulled him out mid warm-ups. They determined that based off of the bracelet software that he didn't have any close contacts, which I mean, if the definition is like close contact for 15 sustained minutes at a time, I guess not, but like it feels kind of weird, right? And then he had 2 negative tests in a row come in. I would imagine just because he's had a positive that he's going to have to be moved to the COVID-19 reserve list sooner rather than later. But just because you need to have multiple negatives and 5 days of no symptoms before you can move them off the list or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, he wasn't moved to the list during the game. He was just not available to participate. Very weird.
That's a very, very upset Des Bryant there. Yeah.
So he was tweeting through it though. That was pretty great.
I enjoyed that because I hadn't tuned into the game yet, and so all of a sudden I was seeing his tweets being retweeted on my feed. I'm like, isn't he supposed to be playing today? Like, I know that things are kind of a little fast and loose with the celebrations this year, but I didn't know that you could still be bringing your phone out to the field. Chad Ocho.
No, he just had it at the ready.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So obviously our defensive ends are not great at rushing the passer this year. How badly will they do against Tampa Bay?
It depends on if Donovan Smith is healthy. He was on the injury report and he missed, I think, a portion of last week's game. And behind him is just it's not a remarkable set of tackles. I think they move Alex Cap outside or something like that. So he was a limited participant. So I'm guessing he's going to play, and he's probably their weak link. And Fadi Adenabo is coming off of like a career game in terms of total pressure, so that's nice. But I would say for the most part, it's going to be really unlikely for the Vikings to be able to generate pressure without blitzes. I mean, that's just such a good offensive line that I would think that the Vikings would need to send more than 4 rushers just because of how poor that defensive line setup is.
Yeah, so is he going to have like a time to write a novel back there?
Yeah, well, I mean, he doesn't usually take that time, right? He's one of the fastest throwers in the league. But I would guess that if he wants to take that time, it's going to be readily available to him. You can punch in, punch out,
Gross. So another question that we should be asking is, will Brady be overthrowing our corners, or are they slow enough to be able to pick him off?
I mean, Cameron Dancer has shown a proclivity for the ball, right? Yeah, I think if you got 4.68 Cameron Dancer out there, you're going to be able to get some picks. Maybe get 4.37, he's going to overrun the play. No, yeah, I think that there's going to be some potential turnover opportunity. Like I said, Brady's thrown picks in 3 of the last 4 games, and a lot of those have actually come on blitzes. And so I think the Vikings have maybe noticed that, or maybe kind of willing to throw a couple extra rushes at Brady to force him to rush his process and take advantage of the miscommunication between him and his receivers. At which point we'll probably see turnover opportunity. I don't know if we'll see an actual turnover. They have to reel the ball in, but we'll probably see a turnover opportunity for either a corner or a linebacker, and maybe hopefully a safety too, because he's thrown a lot of picks to safeties. Tyrann Mathieu in particular, but we've seen him throw some over the top picks to safeties as well. So
Harrison Smith gets to be on guard again for a potential pick.
Yeah, I think Harrison Smith has picked off Brady before too. So
actually, that wouldn't be a huge surprise considering. Yeah, this corner group is starting to, despite how everyone played in the twilight zone last game, this corner group has moments where they do just shine brightly. They can also stink on ice, but they really do have moments where they can shine brightly, especially Cameron Dantzler.
Yeah, what's interesting is I think for most of the season, Gladney was probably playing a little bit better than Dancer, maybe because Dancer had fewer opportunities, so his mistakes seemed a little bit bigger. But I wrote right before the game that Dancer looks like he's going to be a better player long term because he's flashing the kind of skills that are very difficult to teach. And he kind of showed that in this game, that he's got that potential to be a cornerback 1. And so if you've got 2 starting level corners from the same draft, I mean, that's just really remarkable. And this is what it would look like, right? This is the kind of development you would expect to see from, early starting level corners. Really, really exciting stuff. Obviously, there's not, we don't have the script's not written on them yet. We don't know whether or not they're going to end up panning out. But for right now, it very much looks like a group that's going to pan out. I would imagine that there's not a ton of instances where you end up having two above average rookie performances from cornerbacks where none of them pan out. So certainly I would imagine that at least one of them does, and it looks like both of them will. Really excellent stuff. Obviously, it took some time to get involved. It required Zimmer to simplify the defense. It required Zimmer, and we talked about this a couple of times on the podcast, it required Zimmer to adjust the way the coverages are run. But within that framework, they've done a really remarkable job. And so, I mean, obviously they're going to rely on them a lot, this week, especially if Mike Evans is in fact healthy and ready to go. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be an interesting matchup. Normally I would say I would take the Tampa Bay receivers over the Vikings corners, but given the injury concerns and, the fact that those receivers have kind of underperformed a little bit this year, that might be a closer matchup than we would have expected at the beginning of the year. And that's nothing but good news, right? I mean, those corners look not good necessarily yet, but they look like they can be good and that they can turn it on at any moment. And hey, I'd rather they be good late in the season than early in the season, right?
Well, yeah, that's definitely the best case scenario right there. But this team has such an amazing ability throughout the years to play down to their opponents that this could be the week that all of a sudden they turn into this amazing defense like they were against, say, against the Packers. So We'll see what ends up happening there. Let's talk about the Vikings offense for just a moment. Cousins is having a good streak of games despite the wishes of his haters. Will he get time to throw or at least hand off the ball 35 times a game?
So having time to throw is going to be the name of the game here. So the Bucs are super blitz happy defense, and I think what they rank like 5th or something in blitz rate, and they allow the lowest time to throw in the NFL, so an average of 2.59 seconds, and a lot of that is because of that blitz rate. So a 39.3% blitz rate, which I know it's 6th highest, not 5th highest in the league. So on blitzes alone, they forced the 3rd fastest throw time. And over the past couple of weeks, the blitzes have decreased in effectiveness, but they, for the most part, have resulted in quarterbacks being forced to throw the ball really quickly. Now, some of that is, they've played the Saints, and when Drew Brees was healthy, and so they're playing against some quarterbacks that just tend to throw faster. But some of it is just that they can get pressure quickly enough to force people to get rid of the ball. So that's going to be a huge issue. As we mentioned on the show before, Cousins has had years with the Vikings where he's had the longest time to throw. I think he has the longest time to throw in the NFL right now. A lot of that just has to do with the fact that the Vikings have been a heavy play action team. And because their play actions are bootlegs, they usually take a really long time to throw. But this year, they haven't been as heavy on play action, and they still take a little bit of time to throw. So the Vikings do rely on a quarterback that just kind of holds on to the ball a little bit. And it's been kind of weird, right? Because either they've gotten quarterbacks that get rid of the ball super fast, like Sam Bradford, or take forever to throw, like Bridgewater and Keenum and Cousins. And that's just, they haven't really had a middle ground over the past couple of years. But that is going to be an issue against the Buccaneers because of A, how often they blitz, and B, how often they get pressure even when they don't blitz, and force quarterbacks to have to get rid of the ball. Their blitzes through Devin White in particular are really good. Levante David's obviously a really good blitzer. Antoine Winfield, that shouldn't shock anybody, is a pretty good blitzer. And then, Jason Pierre-Paul has been doing fine in terms of getting pressure. He's not like the world's best defensive end anymore, but he's been doing fine, and they've been able to get some pressure up the middle, including midseason signing Steve McClendon, a nose tackle, to replace Vita Vea, who's playing at an all-pro level before he got hurt. So they've been able to generate some pressure with the front four, but a lot of it just has to do with how good they are at throwing extra rushers at the quarterback. So that's going to be the biggest concern, I think, is getting rid of the ball quickly.
Jason Pierre-Paul having a much longer career than anyone would have anticipated after his
right.
After his injury.
After fireworks, yeah.
The fact that he's had a couple of picks, or at least a couple of strip sacks over the past couple of games, he's making a bit of a run right now.
Yeah, he's had some good games. You see, you're right. He does have a pick, actually, so I'm pretty sure. So he's got that. Everybody obviously made some jokes about that, which fair enough. But yeah, he's had a couple of strip sacks. He's been able to force a couple of turnovers. Maybe what the Vikings would have wanted in Unique Ngakoue, right? The turnover, edge rusher. But yeah, I mean, he's had a pretty good year. I think for the most part, he's been enabled by the players around him more than he's been able to directly beat the people in front of him. Brandon Thorne's done a pretty good job of tracking who's been getting, quote unquote, high quality sacks or individual sacks or quick sacks, and who's been getting sacks based off of, coverage or based off of the help that others provide. And, it's no surprise that Myles Garrett is at the top of the list in terms of quality sacks. All of his sacks have come basically through the sheer force of his individual effort, although typically against backup tackles this year, whereas someone like Jason Pierre-Paul has had a lot of help on his individual sacks too. So some of that is not quite necessarily his own level of talent. He's been able to take advantage of the opportunities those others have provided, but that's a skill on its own. Like, it's good to have somebody that can take advantage of those opportunities when they're available. And so that's something that the Vikings are going to have to watch out for, because the Buccaneers force a bunch of individual one-on-one protection. And normally I'd say, hey, he's going to be up against Brian O'Neill. That's not going to be a huge problem. But O'Neill's had a couple of bad games this year, including just right now against the Jaguars. So it is very possible that O'Neill is not going to be able to entirely contain Jason Pierre-Paul one-on-one. And
then there's also Ndamukong Suh.
Yeah, I'm not that worried about him. He's a good name. Actually, let's see what his PFF grade is, just to see if I'm an idiot here. They still have Vita Vea up at the top here. Yeah, Ndamukong Suh's a PFF grade of 59.9. He does have 33 pressures. It looks like a lot of those are also helped out by the blitzes around him. So really large amount of total pressures, not a ton of individual effort involved in him getting his sacks. It's sometimes, when Hall of Fame quality players, and I think Suh is probably not going to get into the Hall of Fame, but I think the level of play that he's put together over the past, decade and a half or however long it's been, is Hall of Fame quality. He just doesn't necessarily have the accolades to go with it. When you've got a player of that talent level, there's just going to be some plays where it looks like he takes over and he's dominant, and you kind of recognize who that player was. And he's had a couple of those plays this year. But for the most part, I'm not that concerned about him from play to play. I just think that, like Jason Pierre-Paul, he's been able to take advantage of some of the opportunities that have been available because of blitzing, because of the talent level of people like Shaquille Barrett, because of what like Mike Edwards, a safety who blitzes a lot, has been able to do, and so on and so forth. So I'm not as worried about Ndamukong Suh. I think that is more just a product of the environment around him.
Question, and it's a bit off topic, but career-wise, who's had the better career, Ndamukong Suh or Khalil Mack?
I would say Khalil Mack. They're different positions, so it's tough to compare. But I think even if you get rid of the stuff surrounding Suh and his reputation, and the fact that Suh has been forced to play both nose tackle and 3 technique, which has really hurt his statistics a lot, and I think a lot of people don't take that into account when they evaluate his career numbers. Even then, I would say that there have been maybe 5 or 6 years where you could make an argument where Suh is the best defensive tackle in the league, and that's been hurt by the fact that J.J. Watt started out his career as a defensive tackle, and then Aaron Donald became the best defensive tackle just like immediately after that. Khalil Mack has had a couple of years where he was unquestionably the best talent in the league, and right now he's competing like with Myles Garrett for that role as one of the top 3 edge rushers. So I would say that Khalil Mack has had a better career, but I think that question is a lot closer than I think a lot of people would initially believe, because Suh has played really excellently. Even when he was in Miami, not getting a ton of numbers, he was setting up a bunch of great stuff for everybody around him.
Well, let's talk about Dalvin Cook, who is the driving force of this offense. Is this going to be the game that he? Well, I mean, is this going to be the game where he spontaneously combusts?
He could disintegrate into dust at any moment, right? His touch numbers are like wild. He had like 30 touches not too long ago. I'm going to pull this up. But yeah, with Alexander Mattison hurt, it was like inevitable, right, that Dalvin Cook was going to get a crazy amount of touches. So his total touch numbers this year so far, 286. He leads the league in touches, which even after missing a couple of snaps here and there because of brief ankle injuries and stuff like that, he's been able to rack up those touches. He's had 2 games of exactly 30 carries, and then most recently the 32 carry game. He's had 2 more games of exactly 27 carries. And then not to mention that he gets a couple of targets here and there. So in one game where he had only 17 carries, he had 5 targets and 5 receptions. In another game with 27 carries, he had 5 receptions. And then most recently, of course, he had 38 touches because of 6 receptions and 32 carries. So yeah, I mean, he could explode. Delta BC Dad is asking if Cook's knees are going to grind into dust this season. Yeah, the knees are a concern. I'm actually a little bit more worried about the collarbone, honestly, just based off the number of hits he's taking. I don't know if ACLs are more or less likely based off of the amount of contact that you're taking, probably, but I would imagine that collarbone injury might have a slightly higher risk of re-injury. So I don't know, but yeah, that's a worry. And the Vikings have not really given him a break, even in games where they've developed a lead and could probably just rely on Alexander Madison to grind out some tough yards. Or not doing that. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Cook might evaporate.
That would probably be the most Viking thing that could possibly happen.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure.
All of a sudden, Dalvin Cook is on the sidelines, go under the blue tent, and all of a sudden he's no longer under the blue tent.
He just kind of Thanos is out of there. Yeah, that's the concern, is that he's going to finger snap his way out of the league. Yeah, and with Alexander Madison injured, they might have to rely a lot on Mike Boone. Hey, you might get your Mike Boone touches finally.
Oh, finally, yes. It is about time that Mike Boone gets his fair shake in the league.
It's time.
Between that and CJ Ham, somebody had mentioned in the chat that CJ Ham stole a touchdown from Dalvin Cook. CJ Ham steals nothing.
he makes his own plays. By the way, there was an amazing pick in the Patriots Rams game. Robert Woods was about to make an incredible catch, and then some safety named Bryant, not a McCourty and not a Phillips, just some other guy, picked it off. Incredible! Holy crap!
Yeah, it looked like he was running it back, but they're likely going to call that down, aren't they?
I would say he's probably down, but Jesus, who is this guy Bryant?
Yeah, that was
Miles Bryant. Who?
It was Miles Bryant. Yeah, I saw this. I saw the name go across the screen.
Free agent, rookie from Washington. God, Washington just produces defensive backs, don't they? Lord.
By the way, the drinking game for this episode is every time Arif looks up something. So I think that one's going to have to count.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, because I had to look up who this guy was. So what? It was that, Dalvin Cook, Ndamukong Suh's PFF grade.
I think we're at 4.
That's not that many.
No, we're actually, while we're at a stopping point, I'm just curious how many Excel tabs you have open at the moment.
Excel? Oh, Jesus Christ. I sent out a fleet earlier about how many I had open, and since then it's actually grown. 43 Excel sheets. I'm writing 3 pieces at once, so that's part of the reason.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Chrome tabs, I've got 143 open. I've got a little thing that tells me exactly how many I have open.
Delta BC Dad asks if you have 3 hands. No,
I'm typing them and then I switch between tabs. I'm not like writing with my hand.
Yes. Like, no, that's not actually what's going on. All right, so we've covered Cook. Jefferson is slowly becoming the consensus pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year this year. How well is he going to do against their corners? And Thielen should be healthy for this one.
Yeah. So I think this is a pretty good matchup. The Buccaneers put their corners on an island a lot. Like I mentioned, a ton of blitzing. And when they blitz, they tend to do cover 1 man, which is where a bunch of the big plays have come from recently. So you see the 2 Carolina Panthers big plays against the blitz. Both, I think, were through DJ Moore. You take a look at the Tyreek Hill touchdown against the blitz. All of those came in cover 1 man with, I want to say, 6 rushers. And so that is probably going to be where you're going to see a bunch of big plays from Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson, who are really excellent one-on-one against man coverage receivers. They do a really excellent job of kind of setting up these, especially younger corners and taking advantage of them. And the Buccaneers, I think they've got a ton of talent in that cornerback group, especially Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis. But, they've dropped off in quality over the past couple of weeks as Jamel Dean has taken on more of a full-time role. He's kind of diminished in terms of the amount of talent that he's bringing to the table. They're both, again, really talented. So I don't want to like kind of underplay how good they are. But when they're in single coverage without a safety very close to them, we kind of see them getting exposed by like decent route runners or by even excellent play design. So, for example, the second DJ Moore play against the blitz, which was like a touchdown, it was like a 24-yard touchdown. That wasn't even a single coverage thing. What the Panthers did is they motioned, I don't know, Robbie Anderson or somebody across the formation at the same time that the Buccaneers were blitzing. And so they sent their slot corner on a blitz, and then whoever was following that receiver was across the formation. And so they ended up throwing a screen to DJ Moore, and like two of the offensive linemen out on the screen had nobody to block because everybody had bitten all the way in the other direction. And because it's single coverage, because it's a blitz, there was only one receiver there, and that receiver was already blocked, or one cornerback there, and that cornerback was already blocked by the other receiver on that side of the field. And so, some of these blitzes, they just leave tons of wide open space, and they certainly like to take advantage of it. I would say that there's going to be a lot of opportunities available to Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. I really like the matchup because it really seems like it's less the physically super talented receivers, although again, like DJ Moore, Tyreek Hill are super athletes, but more their ability to run routes really excellently. Not that Moore is generally an excellent route runner, but on the play that he beat, whoever, for it's probably Carlton Davis, he ran a really good route there, and Tyreek Hill is just a phenomenal route runner. The route running seems to be what gets them that separation against single coverage, and because the Vikings will probably have to get rid of the ball quickly against single coverage, we'll probably see some kind of one-step deep shots, kind of like we saw with that Justin Jefferson 40-yarder, where Cousins just took one-step drop back out of shotgun and just threw the ball because he saw a single coverage, and that was the call. Typically blitz beaters aren't deep shots down the sideline, but sometimes they are because you want to punish defenses. And I think that this is a perfect opportunity for that exact thing. And I think that the receivers that the Vikings have are perfectly set up to beat players like Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis. Again, really talented, but very young and are prone to making some mistakes. So
exactly. So if Kyle Rudolph is looking at being out, do we have, or like, is Irv Smith like ready to be put into a position of tight end one?
If Irv Smith is healthy too, right? He's like I said, he missed the Wednesday practice. He was limited practice on Thursday. It's a back injury, I guess. Initially it was like a hip injury. I don't know, but that can kind of linger for a while. That was my concern with Adam Thielen. I would imagine that it would be kind of Irv Smith's time to shine. He's already out targeting Rudolph on games when they're both healthy. I targeted him last year. And I think that this is a pretty good opportunity because the linebacker matchup is actually, despite how good those linebackers are, the linebacker matchup is actually pretty favorable because even though Levante David is pretty good in coverage, Devin White's weakness is actually coverage. He's a super athlete that's probably going to get it figured out. He's really great in coverage in college, and he's pretty smart. But in coverage this year, he's made enough mistakes where I think that there's going to be some opportunities open for tight ends, especially if it's somebody as fast as Irv Smith, who's kind of one of the few people that have the ability to really challenge Devin White downfield. So there's going to be some opportunities there, again, especially if they blitz. But even if not, even if it's a four-person rush, if it's not Levante David in coverage, I wouldn't say Irv Smith has improved as much as a route runner to be able to consistently beat David, although I'd like to see it. That'd be kind of nice. I think that there's some opportunities there against Devin White. So, I certainly – oh, Jesus. Sorry, there's a Cam just threw a pick six, it looks like.
That's terrible. So,
2 picks from number 41, one on each team, huh? I'm going to be writing about that guy this week, I guess. I would say that there's going to be some opportunities available for Irv Smith, especially obviously if Kyle Rudolph is injured. The Vikings don't go to Kyle Rudolph as often in the red zone as maybe they should, but again, Thielen and Jefferson are really good red zone receivers, so it's not a huge problem. So Thielen being hurt is obviously, it's better to have good players available than not. So it's obviously a problem, but of all the skill players to kind of lose out on, that's the injury that the Vikings can absorb the most.
Yeah, that's rough. Hey, guess who has decided to join the call?
Who's decided to join the call?
Who has decided to join the call and should unmute his mic right now?
It is unmuted.
Oh, Dusty! Hey, the real Dusty. There have been a couple of imposters in the chat.
Yeah, I came and now I see that I'm already here. So that's it for me, folks.
I hadn't even. I was gonna say that I had texted Dusty because I'd mentioned, hey, do you want to be on the show? And after I sent him the link, I said, by the way, someone has already named themselves Dusty O'Connell Norse Code Fantasy League winner already, just as a heads up. So if you're gonna name yourself that, it might actually kick you back.
So you cannot extinguish the truth.
Is that?
No one said that you weren't the Norse Code Fantasy League winner. You are, because you're a part of our collective Norse Code Fantasy Championship. No response, huh?
No, he's sad. That's the sound of Dusty being sad.
I don't understand. I mean, why would you be sad about winning?
He's one of these for each of you.
Aww.
Your success in the Norse Code League that year.
Are we not allowed to say that a win for one of us is a win for all of us? I thought
Yeah,
that was
Dusty, don't you
agreed
wanna
by
win
at
this
least
year?
2/3.
I mean, maybe it is now, but it wasn't then.
That doesn't make any sense at all.
Makes perfect sense to me.
that is just too bad. Dusty, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm about to put a couple of fruitcakes in the oven for the holidays, and I spent the majority of the day playing Cyberpunk 2077 while I was waiting for my bread to rise.
How is that? Have you been able to get past the bugs?
Oh boy! So I'm playing on Xbox One, and yeah, if it was bread, it would be underproofed. Let me tell you, it's, there's a lot of, and I get it. You know, it's supposed to be a game for PC and next gen consoles, but
And you have to give them some leeway. They only had 10 years to develop the game, so
Accurate.
yeah, and you know, lots of crunch time at the end. The bane of every developer.
like a full year they did crunch. Yeah.
But yeah, super glitchy. A lot of texture issues, a lot of model issues. Really kind of screwed up the tutorial for me when I had random texture panels in my way. I was like, I can't really see what I'm doing, but I think I have the right idea. I've played Fallout before. This is similar. No, it's pretty cool. I imagine they'll release a compatibility update at some point. It'll get better. But I gave up and caught up a little bit on the Rams Pats game when it crashed for like the third time, like all the way back to the Xbox home screen. So I was like, you know what? This is probably a sign. I got better things to do. And then I did this instead.
Like watch the Pats get blown out.
Well,
Yeah,
that
pick was ugly.
That was pretty bad. We had a mailbag question for you actually. Which newly announced Star Wars property today are you most excited about?
None of them.
What? You? I don't understand.
Yeah,
Is it because they eviscerated your the EU, the expanded universe that you loved so much?
all that time Dusty spent in middle school reading all the Star Wars novels is all just gone to nothing.
No,
Hey man, Thrawn is back. Thrawn's part of the canon. I don't know. See what you're so upset about.
No, I mean, for me, it's just that, you know, I don't have kids and I'm too old for toys. So I have no interest in whatever Disney's trying to sell me.
Wow. Okay. Can't just appreciate a story for a story, huh?
And the story's not that great either.
I've been to your home. You have toys. Don't act like you You had a wonderful Loch Ness monster. You had a wonderful Loch Ness monster ladle until it died a horrible death, right?
I have another one.
Oh, you did replace
Chat,
it.
how's the weather on that high
I
horse?
replaced it.
Didn't you just mention having an Xbox One? Isn't that a toy? Oh my
It
God.
is. I don't need more toys, I guess, is what I'm getting at. But I guess that's not really true. I guess I specifically don't need Star Wars toys.
There you go. I was going to say...
and then Delta BC Dad is asking if the headphones you're wearing are Audio-Technica M50XSs.
They sure are.
That's what I'm wearing, I think.
Yeah, I got the white ones.
That's incredible. The white ones
flashy
are
cans.
dope.
These are great cans. I love them.
Yeah. Phenomenal.
you people. Whatever.
What? Just because we got great cans?
You'd always appreciate a good pair of cans.
It's the Simpsons episode with the clock and the interview that keeps getting edited. Sweet can.
Yep.
Ryan C. Is James going to go on another bingo people rant? No, I got all of that out of my system. I have ranted enough about the Grand Forks bingo scene from 2004, 2005.
Still just as fascinating.
It's just awful. People. I was going to ask Dusty, because I was talking to somebody online and I was trying to sell them on Perfect Dark as a game to end up playing.
Man, you shouldn't need to sell them. That is a phenomenal game.
You shouldn't have to sell them, but it's actually available on Xbox, like in the marketplace, and it's available on the it's actually available in the the subscription you can buy.
Game Pass.
Yeah, Game Pass. And so I was like trying to sell it on somebody. I was like, no, you don't understand. Like they did such a great job on this. I have spent more time killing Dusty with proxy mines than I have like just about anything else I have done in my in the last 6 or 7 years.
Well, just in the interest of accuracy, you mostly kill me with guns. Let's be 100% on the up and up here.
Did he just admit to killing Dusty? Wow. Wow.
Over and over again, but I just won't go away.
No, I if anyone has killed Dusty, it's me, and I have done a remarkably thorough job of it. But he just keeps coming back.
Right, well, if we're clipping me out of context, we're clipping that out of context.
That's terrible.
What you don't understand, James, is that what is dead can never die.
Oh, really? You're going to go hard on that, but hate stuff. Oh, fine. Whatever. I don't care. You officially and your opinions do not count.
Thanks for coming on, Dusty.
Yeah, that actually works.
All right. It's been See you again next live show. I was momentarily mesmerized by the Patriots in the red zone. I know some of you are significantly further ahead.
Or significantly further behind, as we discovered with the watch along. Cam is really trying. Cam
I'm
is
on
like the
third
only
and 2 with 9:38 left, so that's where I'm at. And oh Jesus!
So
I just get worried every time Cam runs it.
Yeah, Arif, do you think Bill Belichick actually views this season as a failure if they make the playoffs?
If they make the playoffs,
If they
no, I don't
actually
think he's
make the
tanking.
playoffs?
He would not have signed Cam if he was tanking.
No, I don't mean like in the way of like tanking. I just mean like we sent more people to the. Maybe I am arguing if whether or not he was actually tanking, but they sent more people to the "we're not playing this year" list than any team in the league, and it's not even close. It seemed like with the way this team has been designed that they don't have anyone. Maybe it's more like if they maybe it's like a lack of expectation as to like actually making the playoffs with a team that's this kind of put together.
I mean, it would be funny if they made the playoffs, but like in this grim Jesus Christ, they really are inevitable sense. Yeah, I don't think Belichick will view. I mean, he'll probably say that he views the season as a failure or whatever because that's what you have to say. But yeah, I think for the most part, he's done a really great job making that like shoestring team competitive.
Yeah, and I think the choices that the players made to sit this season out were well considered, if not even prescient. I mean, look what's happening in Denver right now. Look what's happening in Baltimore right now. Look what's happening just in kind of the general NFL culture right now. It's a disaster, and there are.
Wait, does Belichick have a hole in his mask?
No, that's what I was laughing at because he was moving his mask around and he had a hole for his mouth. And
oh no, he's not even bothering. He's just like.
Well, he is double masking, so he's got a hole in one of the masks.
Yeah,
that's eliminating the benefit of double masking.
Yeah, so as we sit here debating the quality and effectiveness of Bill Belichick's masks, everybody that chose to sit out this crap show looks pretty smart by comparison, especially to the people that are sitting it out either late by choice, like Des Bryant, or the people who are sitting it out by no choice of their own.
Oh, look, Dusty referenced Denver. Surely that's a drink.
I don't know. It's a double drink if it's something that a reef also had to look up immediately afterwards.
No, that's what Damian Barrett said in the chat. I didn't have to look anything up.
Well, no, what I'm saying... Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
As I smack the mic. Well, Dusty, thanks so much for coming on, and I'm happy to make it so that I can accomplish your goal of being of like monetizing you for bonus content.
Yeah, feel free to use my name to sell more Patreon subscriptions or whatever.
Or whatever it is that you do these days.
Whatever you call this.
I'm gonna send you a shirt. That's what I'm going to do, Dusty. I'm going to send you a shirt.
What, and lose out on all the money we made by having Dusty on the show?
Yeah, I think you got to get a few more subscriptions before you'll be break even on that one.
Put Dusty in a onesie.
That's a pretty big onesie. I'm just saying.
It's big enough. I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
It's a lot of thunder to hide.
No, we are absolutely not going to send Dusty coffee. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, please don't. I got into maybe not a fight, but my partner wanted to sign up for one of those, coffee of the week or month subscription deals where, they tell them what you like and they send you coffee. And I'm like, why would we do that? I can just go to Whole Foods. They have more, varieties of fair trade coffee there. And a lot of it is, locally sourced. Like, why don't I just go to the store and get stuff I know I'm going to like, instead of putting up with like one awesome bag and probably one crappy bag a month of French roast that I don't even want. And he's like, fine, be difficult. I'm like, I'm not being difficult. I'm just...
Well, you could just say you don't want French roast. I mean,
I can just go to the store and not buy it.
Yeah, but then you have to go to the store. This chat's going off, by the way. They want to send you instant coffee. It is cheaper, so that's a good point. They're asking about whether or not there really is local coffee, because did they have local coffee hills in Denver?
Well, so fun fact, coffee actually grows at the approximate altitude of Boulder, but it's not wet enough. I do have a little, actually, hang on.
Oh boy. Oh God, we should not have talked about coffee.
No, this is your fault. I was getting ready for the mailbag.
Are you growing coffee?
Coffee really does grow in Colorado. This will someday produce a couple of Arabica beans, but we have a ways to go before we get there.
Yes, uninteresting facts do in fact count as a drink. Thank you, Ricardo.
Uninteresting
facts. I hope y'all. I wish you'd had more warning that I would be here. You could have acquired more alcohol in advance.
Aw. Actually, Dusty, I was surprised that you were able to be free. I didn't know if tonight was a night that Masked Singer was going to be on. I know that's your show of choice.
We have Hulu Plus, so I can watch it whenever I want.
Which is all the time.
Yeah, I'm actually, as soon as this game is over, I'm going to go back to watching Masked Singer.
Oh, I miss you, Dusty. I was really looking forward to potentially seeing you guys this year. So we'll have to see about what's going on next year for the plan.
For sure.
So,
well, if you are ever in a place that is not near the top of the list of per capita COVID-19 infections in the world, then we'll think about it.
Yeah, see you in 3 years, man.
Yeah, in the unlikely event they ever let any of us go anywhere, I'd love to get together and do a three-headed live show. I mean, the London one was crazy fun, even if the organization was a little lacking. So it would be cool to get another bite at that apple, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure.
It just we actually have people in East Grand that are protesting the bans for the state of Minnesota now. So they're just opening up everything over there.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's not shocking at all.
No, absolutely not. They're like, oh yeah, we're the hotbed of COVID for the world. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm gonna go to Hugo's now and try not to die. I never knew that a trip to Hugo's was gonna be a heroic act until now.
Heroic yet selfish.
Every time you leave, well, yes. Every time you leave Hugo's, you come back, like every time you leave Hugo's, you get sprayed down like in the movie Chernobyl when the guy went to go and bring the dosimeter up to and then the truck and everything. Yeah, it feels a bit like that. Ugh. Well, what is the anti-vaccine in North Dakota? Prevalent. Incredibly prevalent.
Yeah, James, didn't you vote for one?
I did not vote for the dead guy. I keep telling you people I didn't vote for the dead guy, and I keep getting reminded by you people that I did. No, I did not vote for the dead guy.
What do you mean, you people?
What do you mean, you people? No, absolutely not. No. Well, thank you so much, Dusty. We are going to talk about something that is very near and dear to a Reef's heart, and maybe you have a thought on this as well, but it does appear that the days of Carson Wentz starting in Philadelphia are now over, at least for this season, and the people in the people who are in charge of the Eagles have a wonderful problem with his cap hit coming up.
Who is Carson Wentz? Not familiar with this name.
Not familiar. He's never. We've always been in a land war with East Asia. Is that it?
Yeah, really happy that the Eagles finally decided to draft a quarterback. Took a while to put that guy out there on the field at quarterback, but good to see Jalen Hurts get a shot. All he knows is winning, except that time he lost at Oklahoma. Otherwise, all he knows is winning. I guess a better postseason college record than Carson Wentz. I have no idea what the Eagles are going to do. That sounds like a crazy difficult trade to swing, although they'll be absorbing the signing bonus. So anybody who trades for Wentz only has to take like the $20 million or $24 million a year, which if they intend to start him is not awful starting quarterback money, but it is guaranteed. Because if he's on a roster in March 3rd of 2021, his 2022 salary, kind of like Kirk Cousins' contract, his 2022 salary completely guarantees. And so anybody who trades for him is going to, because the trade will happen in the offseason anyway, is going to be on the hook for his 2022 contract, and that's going to be just so tough to move. Man, I've seen like every possible valuation for Carson Wentz on the timeline. Like I've seen some people say first round pick. I've seen some people say fifth round pick. Both of those valuations are wild to me. I would imagine he goes for like a second and some change. I don't know, maybe a third. But I can't imagine him going for a first round pick. That would be nuts given the contract situation. And hey, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe they'll start Jalen Hurts for a couple of games and then they fire Doug Peterson and then the next coach believes that Carson Wentz is salvageable and decides not to trade him. Who knows?
I'm just trying to envision a scenario where he doesn't go the way Nick Foles did, where he ends up over. Well, no, he started over the Jags first. He ended up getting some serious time over at the Jags.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if, it was kind of a Nick Foles situation where they just trade his contract, where they decide he's a bridge starter and maybe they can, work him in. And it's not like they expected Gardner Minshew to start for the Jaguars or anything like that. So, but they would have to subsequently trade him again once they decide that he's not worth it for somebody who wants a backup. I don't know, man.
Just rough. Yeah. The more you read about it, it's like, okay, is he actually going to have to be paid the $57 million? Is it going to be the 20 plus or whatever? So you're saying that they're not going to have to pay the signing bonus for Wentz.
So he's got $65 million guaranteed over the next 2 years if you presuppose that he's on a roster on March 3rd, which I think is a fair, assumption to make. So that $65 million over 2 years is absolutely untenable, but it gets split between the two organizations, and so the Eagles can save themselves about $20 million? About $20 million in signing bonus, just a little bit less than $20 million in signing bonus. And so they'll retain that and save themselves the 47 million in cap over the next 2 years. And the other organization gets to take on a potentially starting quality quarterback, obviously not actually starting quality quarterback, for about 23 million a year, which is very low end starting quarterback money. It's really high end starting tight end money. Maybe that's part of the consideration.
Yeah, it's ridiculous is what it is. It's just that amount of money.
I cannot imagine the take environment going any better for me.
between Trubisky and and Wentz.
Yeah, like the only thing that would have made me kind of hit for the cycle on the takes is if Josh Allen was actually bad this year. But he's got another year for me to make good on that. So we'll see. But yeah, just an incredible series of takesmanship this year. Like 2020 has been bad for everybody, but the silver lining for me personally is the takes.
That's terrible, but
yes.
Accurate. All Josh Allen really needs to do to solidify you. This year. Just
every time a Reef mentions how great his takes are, drink. I'm not saying my takes are great, although clearly they are. I'm just saying that the universe has conspired to make them true.
Well, yeah, that's that. Yeah, I'm just waiting for Josh Allen to come out against Thanksgiving next year, or at least coming out against Turkey.
If he comes out against Turkey, I have no choice but to stand.
Yeah, I think at that point you're just that's just going to end up having to be it for you.
Yeah, he's my QB.
Yeah,
I'll have erased all of my Josh Allen tweets. Yeah, that would be way too good if he did that.
Well, let's go to the mailbag, and we're going to take 2 or so questions from our Twitter, and then we're going to open it up to people from the room here. So, first question is from Raul, who asks, Jay Feely was the announcer last week. I thought he did well, but do you think the kicking gods misassigned the kicking talent for the game to him? Could his presence be detrimental to the Vikings moving forward? Let's track this.
Wow. Okay. I should have. See, this is another one where I could have researched beforehand, but I'm not going to because that sounds like a lot of work. Yeah, no, I think so. I'm kind of surprised that you said that you thought he did a great job. I didn't actually listen to the broadcast, so I don't know, but a lot of people seem to hate him. So yeah, I will see. But yeah, I would imagine assigning a kicker to broadcast a game is uniquely bad juju for the Vikings. I'm not going to look up the evidence for that. To me, the evidence is rock solid.
I was as somebody who watched the broadcast, I will say that I didn't find him as atrocious. I did not enjoy the woman who's doing the color, like the actual play-by-play for it. Yeah, I didn't enjoy. I didn't enjoy her, and I don't know if it's just a situation that I'm not used to a woman who's calling a game like that. I watch basketball all the time that has women calling the game, and that's fine. But for whatever reason, like
you felt like you really needed to like, no, I'm not a sexist.
Well, it was the thing.
Thanks, James.
It was the bingo thing from last week. Like
you're not a bingoist, yeah.
No, exactly. No,
I'm right here. If we need to cancel James, we can do it just like on the spot.
Yeah, you got the clip saved from Untitled One show, right? You're good.
Let me be clear. We are not airing anything from the Untitled One show.
I had no idea that stick horse riding was such a popular pastime.
Yes. No, I don't know what it was, but I didn't enjoy the way that she was calling the game. So I don't know.
So I have no opinion because again, I didn't listen to the broadcast, so I have no idea.
Yeah, but we have heard damn bingoists. Thank you, Adam Bryant. I've heard other people say something similar, so I at least don't feel like that off target or whatever. But yeah, people were heralding her as like, hey, first woman to call an NFL game, great. It was okay. I don't know. I didn't.
Well, so on that subject, if you're watching this game or I think most games on Amazon, they do have an alternate commentary feed. And last year, the alternate commentary was the 2 women broadcast crew. And this year, I don't know if they have that, but I just go right to the Scouts Corner, which is always a great commentary feed to have anyway. It's got Daniel Jeremiah on it. And the problem with that is that they had no control over the the camera, right? Like the broadcast crew, the primary broadcast crew gets to work with the production crew, and they like work together during the game to make the commentary align with what's happening on the screen, and they can draw on the telestrator and stuff like that. And so it's very clear that they're in control of what's on the television. And so it was really difficult to assess the quality of the broadcast crew on Amazon, which I think was Hannah Storm and somebody else, I forget her name. They were probably fine, but it was just so difficult to tell because they just had no relationship with the production crew in charge of like the cameras and the telestrator. And so they were just like reacting to stuff that was happening, the decisions that the broadcast crew was making. And they're like, oh yeah, and here's the replay, I guess. And looks like, Troy Aikman drew something on the screen. So let's talk about that for a second. Like, what are you going to do? So it's been pretty difficult to evaluate it from that perspective. But I guess at least they're getting shots.
I had when I used to watch streams of the games. Yeah, even
Don says Andrea Kramer was the other one with Hannah Storm.
Yeah, I ended up watching a whole lot of games that were broadcasted on Sky Sports. It was just the rebroadcast of it, and during the commercials, they weren't airing the American commercials, so they would just have this panel of super random former NFL player. Oh
yeah, like the ones that have like a tenuous connection to London, or Osi Umenyiora, who's born in London. He was there a lot.
Yep, he was there. Like a couple of just random NFL players would be there, and some of if you watch one of the YouTube videos of the Minneapolis Miracle reactions videos, like one of those, like they show some of their reactions from that. Like there's usually like three people on the table, and whether or not they actually are knowledgeable is kind of questionable, but I used to watch a lot of those, and so it'd be like they'd go back to them and like, okay, well, we're going to kill 8 minutes of time or 5 minutes of time here as we go to commercial. Don't know what more to say here.
Yeah, I remember the transitions to Sky Sports. They kind of killed the mood a lot on those transitions.
Yeah, it was just like
dead, absolutely dead.
Watched a bit too many Sky Sports things there. Also from Raul, what kind of team do you expect ultimately wins the Vikings their first Super Bowl? Dominant first seed or scrappy wild card? It has to be the latter, right? Does it make you feel better about this year?
I guess the only team that wins the Super Bowl is the one you don't believe in. So yeah, I guess, because I absolutely do not believe this team's going to win the Super Bowl. But obviously mathematically it's better to be the one seed, not just because of home field advantage, but because of the bye. But narratively, it just feels appropriate that it's like a 7-seed Vikings team that most years wouldn't even make the playoffs without the random money-making move of adding a 7th seed. I could totally see like the Vikings ruining it for everybody and winning Super Bowl as a 7th seed, and thus cementing the existence of the 7th seed in perpetuity.
Sam asked, which Vikings-Jags home game was crazier? The 2012 season at the Metrodome that Blaine Gabbert had the Hail Mary for overtime, or the
2012 game was the one with Blair Walsh, right? Where he nailed a 50-yarder to win it? Am I wrong about that?
I'm trying to remember. You're going to have to look it up.
I'm looking it up, so you all get to drink. Let's see. Game summary, September 9th, 2012. Final kick, Blair Walsh. Oh, so Blair Walsh, 55-yard field goal to send it to overtime, and then in overtime, 38-yard field goal to win it. Which Don just said because he has a better memory than me. Get to. That one was pretty crazy, but that game just felt like we didn't know how bad Christian Ponder was at the moment. This is his first year as like the true starter. People were excited about him based off of like the brief moments that they saw in 2011. And so it just kind of felt like, hey, maybe this is who Christian Ponder is. This doesn't feel like, it's crazy for him. And we didn't know whether or not the Jaguars were like good because we didn't know if Blaine Gabbert was that bad yet. That game doesn't feel as crazy as this game does, where we know exactly how talented these two teams should be. And we saw the Vikings absolutely almost lose it. So I think this game was crazier. Maybe I'm just saying that because it's more recent. But I think that other game felt more exciting because it didn't feel like anyone was disappointing you by the way that they were playing in the game. Whereas this one was just constant disappointment and it happened to be close. But I think this one was crazier.
Yeah, just I can't even imagine what it would feel like to have actually had money on that Vikings game. Not the 2012, the 2020.
Oh, in this
season.
game? Yeah, that must have just been, if I had hair, I'd be pulling it out sort of thing.
Yes, exactly. Just why, God, why sort of thing. Let's go to a question from Hunter, and then we're going to do stuff from the audience. So if you have a question, go ahead and type into the chat that you have a question, and I will go to you after this. Hunter asks, does the offense limit Kirk's ability to check out of / into plays at the line of scrimmage? Could the lack of Kirk's inability to check to other plays lead to further weaknesses against teams blitzing?
So I do think that he does have a fair amount of latitude to check at the line of scrimmage and just to kind of double check how good he has been against the blitz. So he has been kind of big play dependent against the blitz. So his completion percentage is only 60% on the blitz, and without the blitz, it's above 70. But his yards per attempt is somewhat similar. It's a little bit higher without the blitz. But his touchdown rate and his big play rate is much, much higher against the blitz. His interception rate is much lower against the blitz, and thus his adjusted yards per attempt and his passer rating are both higher against the blitz. So when Kirk Cousins sees a blitz or senses a blitz, it very much looks like they check into shot plays. And so I do think, actually, that he does have a fair amount of latitude at the line of scrimmage. I do think that he does change the plays. I do think that he will check into runs if he sees a run favorable look. I think he'll check into passes a little bit less often, but if he sees a pass favorable look. So I would say that he does have that latitude, and I would say that that latitude has allowed them to be explosive against blitzes, even if they're not that consistent against blitzes.
Krishna Nelson has a question. Are the Vikings feeling the effects of Barr being gone, and thoughts on his future?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, Barr's threat to blitz, which, I mean, obviously he doesn't blitz as often as a lot of people want, and I think that that's fair because it's the thing that he's best at. But I think that his threat to blitz creates a bunch of one-on-one matchups that makes pass rushing easier and enables a lot of that talent to look better than it is, which is not to say the Vikings defensive line last year wasn't talented. That obviously was. But that threat, the ability to force one-on-one matchups, has been such a huge part of the way the Vikings design their defense that not having them there has been pretty significant. And the fact that they're still good on third downs is fascinating, just because that they really rely on Barr to be able to do that. But I think that he would be able to kind of supercharge that ability. Plus, his ability to get to the sideline on fake blitz looks has just been such a big part of the way that they shut down screens. I think in games where Barr has played against the screen, the Vikings have been much better, even though a lot of times it's Kendrick who is shutting down the wide receiver screen. And I think they are absolutely missing Barr. Plus, I mean, he's just way better against the run than any of his replacements are. And the Vikings have been gashed in the run game. So I think that, yeah, we are seeing pretty significant effects of Barr being gone. Not necessarily because he's like this super high level Pro Bowl quality linebacker. I think that he's above average. But just because the elements that these other linebackers are poor at, they're significantly worse at than Barr is.
We're going to go to Jesse, who can unmute himself and ask a question.
Yeah, so I was just wondering a question regarding our defensive line. Obviously we have Hunter out and Michael Pierce sat out the season. And Ngakoue was obviously a failed experiment. So what do you think our defensive line looks like next year, having Hunter back, Pierce hopefully back, and then do you think we would grab another defensive end in the draft or maybe grab somebody from free agency?
Yeah, I would say grabbing a defensive end in the draft is likely, but not in the sense that they would necessarily get an obvious immediate starter. I don't see the Vikings grabbing a guy in the first 2 rounds. It's certainly possible, but at least at edge rusher, I could see it at defensive tackle. But they've just typically gotten guys in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th rounds, and some of those guys have the ability to compete right away or become rotational guys like Danielle Hunter. Some of them don't, like Scott Crichton. But for the most part, I think that they'll try to grab somebody with tools in the 3rd or 4th round to immediately compete for a starting job with Afadi and DJ Wanham. And I think that those two are going to be competing for a starting job next year across from Danielle Hunter. So I think that from a defensive line perspective, the primary investment will probably be at 3 technique, as much as they say they love Shamar Stephen. I imagine that they're just going to want some pressure at some point. And so they might grab a 3 technique, because I don't think that they're very happy with James Lynch, and I don't know what they feel about Armon Watts. And I think that they'll have a rookie from the third or fourth round compete with Wanaman Adenabo for that other starting job, and maybe no one's ever going to win it. I think they might even just kind of rotate between three people, between Wanaman Adenabo and a rookie.
Next question is going to be from Steve Martin, who asks, if the Vikings had drafted Aaron Donald instead of Anthony Barr in 2014, how does the trajectory of the team change?
Wow. Okay. Well, Donald is a better player. Yeah, I mean, even if you kind of throw out the question of positional value, where Donald plays a more valuable position than Barr does, even after you account for kind of the unique role that Barr played, especially in the early defenses that the Vikings had, yeah, it absolutely would significantly alter, I think, the trajectory of the team. Do they win against Philadelphia if they've got Aaron Donald instead of Anthony Barr? I don't know. I mean, they got like stomped, right? So it's not as if that game was close enough that one player could make a difference at a non-quarterback position. But yeah, I mean, I think the team would be a lot better. Obviously, we would change their drafting strategy. We'd probably see linebackers go later in that draft. So I don't know who. Maybe they would have drafted Stephon Anthony or something, as well as Eric Kendricks in 2015. I don't know what the other linebackers in 2014 were, but you know, an Anthony Barr type linebacker is probably always going to be on the table. So they might have been interested in Myles Jack or Jalen Smith in the draft that both of them were in, even though both had injury concerns. And you know, they probably wouldn't have been able to grab Myles Jack, although I think he went at the top of the second round, so maybe. But you know, that would have been interesting, and I mean, Myles Jack would have been a good pick to pair with Aaron Donald, right? So who knows? But you'd have to make a bunch of, well, if they do that, they won't do this. If they do that, they won't do this, and you'd have to change a bunch of their draft picks to kind of project it out. But I would imagine, like, there's not really much question that the team would just be significantly better.
Let's go to Goebel, who can unmute and ask a question.
Hi, gentlemen. I have a two-parter for you. Are you surprised about how, I think, relative to what everyone's expectations were, how normal this season has been as a whole? And then the second part, do you think Danielle Hunter's leverage in terms of negotiating a new contract has changed since his surgery based on what the team has done this year? And do you think there's anything they can do going forward this season to change that?
Yeah, so first question, actually, yes. So obviously this year has been completely abnormal. This is the first season the NFL has ever had where you're going to have games played on all 7 days of the week, you know, assuming that the playoff schedule goes as expected. Who knows about that? But right now we're on track to have a game on every single day of the week. And that's never happened before. So that's really bizarre. Obviously, we've had games, you know, kind of moved entirely. The Steelers, I think, lost their bye, which did happen last year because of a hurricane, I think, right? Tampa Bay and Miami, I think. But, yeah, this has been a very strange year, but I think that you're right, that relative to at least my expectations, this year has gone off a little bit more normally and perhaps not to anyone's credit, maybe not for the better, but the NFL's persistence in making money would not be denied. So I'm a little bit surprised at how well-oiled they intend for this to be running and how much they've been able to kind of force the issue and make games happen, even though you've had a wide receiver start at quarterback. I am a little bit surprised. And as Ryan points out in the chat, they did tarnish Webb's dominance on Tuesday night, which is a shame. I agree. And then the second question, I think Danielle Hunter's leverage is diminished by the injury and then therefore the offseason surgery. But I would say probably not as much as it would be for a lot of players just because of his age and history of production. You know, that is the kind of injury where you can be concerned about kind of long-term stuff. But I think that he is too tantalizing a prospect for NFL GMs to not want to spend money on him. So, which obviously gives him a significant amount of leverage. I don't think he's going to hold out or anything like that. But I do think that that's going to be a big part of the conversation. And I do think that unfortunately for him means probably just a lot less guaranteed money, but probably similar averages over the first 3 years of his contract. I think it's just going to be a guaranteed money question. I think so, but I don't think it'll allow the Vikings to avoid having to find a way to pay them out in a year where it's going to be very difficult to find ways to pay players out.
Delta BC Dad, who's joined us here, has sent in a question. Says, this is a question for Arif's male grooming and relationship corner. I have experimented with having a beard on various occasions because my wife liked it, but it always made my face scratchy and uncomfortable. What are your suggestions? Beard oil or divorce lawyer?
I just like the look on Dusty's face when he found out that we have a male grooming and relationship corner. Something I found out just now as well. But I think beard oil makes a lot of sense, and it's not because the oil itself makes the hairs any softer, although it doesn't have the potential to do that.
What on earth is happening right now in the hallway for the Rams?
But they're giving them bananas.
Is that a normal thing? Is that just something that...
Yeah, to prevent cramps. They got potassium.
Well, I'm aware that bananas help with cramps and because they have potassium, but is that just... At a home stadium when it's not, super humid or super hot, is that something that just happens that we don't see often?
I don't know, man. I'm not in the hallway during halftime.
Well,
maybe.
I'm asking you as our insider.
That's what Belichick's mask hole is for.
Belichick's just ready for that banana.
Actually, Damien raises a better question. Why won't anyone take those bananas? I don't know if that's normal, man. I have to guess that it is.
Maybe
it's because Sean McVay is new age.
Maybe that's it. And that's probably why anybody who's worked with him or has been in a room with him for more than 15 minutes could be considered a close contact and therefore hireable in the NFL.
Oh man, what were we talking about before that?
Before the banana situation?
Oh yeah, the beard oil.
We were talking about the beard oil.
So one of the primary impacts of beard oil is not whether or not it makes the actual hair any softer, although it can do that. It's that the process of applying beard oil with a beard brush cleans out some of the dead skin underneath the beard itself, and then also kind of helps moisturize that, so it can help prevent a lot of the scratchiness you can get. So I would say that actually beard oil and a beard brush is going to help. But you should make sure to clean your beard and stuff like that. That's going to be a big part of making sure that you don't always have to scratch it. Although just initially growing the beard in is going to be itchy no matter what you do. After a while, to avoid that, I think the beard oil with the beard. I'm sure we're going to get an email after the show airs, and someone's going to be like, "Well, I'm a professional esthetician, and I would say that you're completely wrong." And that's fair. I don't know what I'm talking about. But that is my understanding.
I've only had a beard for most of my life.
I haven't had to deal with itchy beard since I started using beard oil. So there's my personal testimonial that you can take as a solid data set.
I refuse to answer Don's legal question. He just said that he had a legal question for us. Trubisky's burner is asking the question for us: which new Star Wars project, which was announced today, has you most excited and makes you laugh as cynically as Arif when he got the news that Wentz was benched?
And also, Gobel has said multiple times to us, and once again in this chat, that a bottle of almond oil and an essential oil of your choice is cheaper. You don't need to spend up on anything in the cosmetic aisle, and that's probably true for a lot of things. But fair point. I don't know. Maybe that'll work. But as for the Star Wars properties, I would say the Patty Jenkins thing I'm interested in. Rogue Squadron, a phenomenal video game that could be turned into an excellent movie. Maybe that'll be good. Someone said that it was a Rogue One prequel, and despite the fact that I hate Rogue One, that actually does not change my opinion on whether or not Rogue Squadron is going to be any good. So, who knows? I'm pretty excited about it. Patty Jenkins has shown some talent with big properties in the past, even when kind of limited by what has been given to her, in terms of the Zack Snyder DC universe. Has still been able to produce a pretty decent movie. So I'm excited about that. As for what makes me cynically laugh about the Star Wars properties, I didn't actually look up that part of it. I don't remember which of the Star Wars properties came out that were
Well, while Arif does some research here, I was going to say that the Cassian the Cassian one is clearly the one I'm the most interested in as the person who loves Rogue One out of this duo. So
Jesus Christ.
Actually, that's a lie. I have absolutely no desire to watch that at all.
What is this Willow thing? Oh, that's a Lucasfilm thing. I was like,
Yeah.
Isn't that a non-Star Wars thing? Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess the Obi-Wan Kenobi one is kind of stupid. You don't need to do it.
Well, if they're bringing back Hayden Christensen for it, I feel like
The best actor of the Star Wars prequel era, yeah.
I was going to say what you really should do is just make sure that that Jake Lloyd has a role in it too. If you're going to be bringing in people that haven't acted since the prequels, let's do that instead.
Let's see, Obi-Wan Kenobi, directed by Deborah Chow, who helmed memorable episodes of The Mandalorian Season 1. Well, I like The Mandalorian, so...
Well, that's the thing. And Dusty, why don't you come on unmute for just
Jesus
a second?
Christ. All right, yeah, let's hear what he has to say.
Dusty, you had alluded to your thoughts on The Mandalorian during the live watch along. What are your thoughts on The Mandalorian again?
Well, look, I'm going to hijack your question and answer the one that your intrepid listener asked the two of you. And like the Star Wars universe, I could get excited for a Star Wars property if the writing was done in like a cohesive way that drove kind of the universe forward, and not this crazy like schizophrenic jumping back and forth in time and retconning and prequels.
That's never gonna
and all
happen.
this stuff. It's exhausting. If they have this big. The only good thing about Star Wars is the enormous universe that it takes place in, right? And they have this. They have a blank canvas, and I feel like they're too afraid to do anything with the entirety of it.
So it seems like they might with this Andor thing. Oh no, that's Cassian. Never mind, you're right.
And my feeling about The Mandalorian, like it's significantly better if you only watch like one episode a week. But if you try to binge watch it, you realize that every 3 or 4 episodes they're pretty much the same. Mandalorian finds himself in an impossible situation. Mandalorian makes an unlikely friend. Mandalorian weasels his way out of unlikely situation and goes off to his next adventure, which is remarkably similar to the last one, with a new friend for life that he never sees again.
And just hoping
Dusty's
that
repeating Reddit memes that he found online. Excellent.
I didn't need Reddit to tell me that.
Actually, I was going to add that just hoping that would be the final leap that sends him home.
Ricardo makes a good point that that is most TV shows. Okay. So Ryan's point that Mando's a bit of a copy of Firefly, but less of a crew. Yeah, I think that's the intention. I think they very heavily draw upon Firefly, and that's the point. Obviously, it has a lot less personality, even with in adorably marketable Baby Yoda to go with it. But I mean, I don't think you can match the personality of Firefly. No, I think that's fine. I think that they very clearly wanted to have a Western in space, and what's your proto example of that? It's Firefly.
God, I hated Firefly.
You did? I don't want to hear it.
This is not the first time I've made this. I
just block it out.
Yeah,
that is a controversial take.
Which I mean, like, there's stuff about Firefly I don't love, but I'll say that if you're going to make a Western in space and you don't draw upon Firefly, you're probably making a mistake. And I think now cancel James. But I think that they do some good things with it. I don't know if I loved some of the direction that they've taken in season 2 with The Mandalorian, but I'm glad that they've got like a larger story that they're working towards at least. And I don't think the episodic nature and the formulaic nature of some of these episodes, which I think are distinct enough within that formula that I don't think it really meets that criticism all that well. I don't think that inhibits the fact that they very clearly have directions that they want to go in terms of the way the protagonist, whose name is unimportant, and maybe that's a problem, deals with learning about his heritage and his history. It deals with seeing if he even wants to find a home for Grogu. That was a directorial decision they should have interfered on. Like, what an awful name.
Now. I want to make it perfectly clear that when Jon Favreau appeared on Binging with Babish, he used the term Baby Yoda instead.
He did. I noticed that too.
So
yeah,
as far as I'm concerned, that now it's canon.
Ryan, your point about all Star Wars names being horrible is true, but I think in different ways. Like, Vanderpit Darkthrush or whatever is like hilariously campy as a Star Wars name, but like Grogu's just awful. Like, there's a difference, I think. And then, yeah, Adam points out not another Y name, Yoda, Yaddle, Yiddle. So I think Yaddle and Yiddle are both prequel properties, but there was a Yoda creature in KOTOR that I don't think had a Y name, but obviously is no longer canon. Maybe Yiddle, I don't know, but Yiddish. But
Adam Bryant has come out and said that he made up Yiddle.
Sure, I mean it's believable that.
But
that
that's
would
the
be a
thing
Yoda
is
name.
that it's believable. Somebody actually in the chat had mentioned that what we really need is a pod racing as a pod racing movie, like Days of Thunder style.
Hey, the pod racing game is like a top 5 Star Wars game.
That game was awesome. I enjoyed that. And
yeah, it's like KOTOR and pod racing. But yeah, I mean, I think that The Mandalorian has a strong narrative direction that I think is pretty evident in terms of the arcs of the two characters that matter. I do think it'd be nice if the background characters mattered more, but having a character of the week isn't like an insane weakness of the show. And some of them come back. I really wish I didn't not want to see Gina Carano anymore because the character she plays is great. And the fact that character recurs was fun for a while, but guess not seeing that anymore.
Yeah.
And Carl Weathers being a recurring character is hilarious to me. And he does a good job. They need to bring back what's his name, Darksaber guy, Moff Gideon.
The Carl Weathers being a regular on the show just makes me laugh because I just remember his scenes in Arrested Development.
That's all I can think of.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now you got a stew going.
Yeah, he's just sitting there just making a stew. So let's go to Chris, who asks, do you think Zimmer has lived up to his quote that he can find a cover 2 corner at the 7-Eleven?
Yeah, I think I think he's kind of vindicated that. I mean, the corners aren't playing pretty well, but like he switched to cover 2 as soon as the corners are struggling. He knew what he was doing.
Exactly. Let's go to Andrew Shad, who asks, I think it's safe to say that at this point, Jefferson has been able to replace most of Diggs' on-field production. However, he has not replaced the fear in his teammates' eyes with the prospect of him dating their sisters. With JJ underperforming, who on the team can pick up this slack?
Oh, geez. I don't know who the lady killer is on the team. You have to wait a couple of years before you can figure out who that is. Let me go through the R lads of the Vikings roster real quick. Let's see if any names.
That is, in fact, Brendan has mentioned. That is, in fact, a throwback to the 96 questions.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a 96 questions. Also, Gerald Hodges made an appearance when in a previous version of 96 questions when they asked, "Who would you not want your sister to date?" So and then he got traded. So interesting, right? Let's see. I could see Amir Abdullah. Yeah, I'm going to go with Amir Abdullah. He's handsome.
All right, I'm going to go with a question from Nolan in the mailbag. Last call for questions from the audience. So if you have a question, go ahead and put it in to the chat or mention that you want to do the audio for it. Question is from Nolan, who asks, question for James and Arif's Music Corner. I am currently finishing an opera on Vancouver Island, and it strikes me that Norse mythology is well representative in opera stories. If you could choose one story from Vikings lore to be made into an opera, what would it be? Opera is a genre of many extreme human emotions, so the Vikings are well suited for this. The 1998 season, the Love Boat, the rise and fall from grace of numerous stars, you get the picture. So what is your choice?
I think the 2005 season, which includes the Love Boat. Like, I think you got to include all of 2005.
Be like, I can't wait for Smoot's moment out on the boat.
Yeah, you got to get the Smoot moment in there. You got to get the draft class. You got to get Mike Tice getting caught scalping tickets, like all of it.
Oh God, I forgot that was 2005.
Yeah.
Randy Moss's mooning. That's pretty good. I think that you could do one on the 2010 season that just ends with the deflation of the dome.
Yeah, it just
Like,
ends there. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
That ends up being the moment, not the game in Detroit, nothing after the dome falling. Just
The dome falls, the death aria plays.
Yep.
Yeah.
The death aria plays. Maybe have a song for the guy who was on the truck that was going across the field as the snow started to fall.
That's right.
Like there needs to be something there that works. I think that's probably the best possible option. There.
Hey, have you opened Don's gift yet?
No, I have it literally in my lap right now. I'm waiting for it. So we do have a gift from Don from Ohio for me to open live on the air here. So I'm properly disturbed by the fact that I'm about to do this. But Don from Ohio actually does ask the question. My question for Arif, I'm playing Eric Thompson in the first round of our fantasy league. Do you have any sound advice and or spread some of that Arif-a-san good luck this way? Also, if I beat him, how should I go about celebrating this?
Well, so if you beat him, you should send him a gift, a James Madison jersey. I think that either that or a UND jersey, whichever is easier to acquire. But I think that's how you do it. As for advice, I don't know, man. Follow your heart. It's fantasy. Just players play. It's kind of hard to predict.
That's terrible. All right, Don. A
UND Wentz jersey. Holy crap. Okay, yeah.
All right, Don. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes. Hello, gentlemen.
I'm. For those who I mentioned it on the show that I was getting a Christmas gift this year from Don from Ohio, and I was going to have to open it on the actual on the show on the live show this year. So I'm about to do this, and I'm rightly terrified, and it looks like I'm going to have to turn off my amazing background in order to do this.
Now, before you do that, there is a second part of the gift. I need you to make sure that you have access to your email after you open this gift.
Yep, that's not a problem.
Okay, great.
I'm okay. Yep, I do see that there. It doesn't say what it is. It just says.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's even better. That's even better.
So there is in fact.
Also, Don, what's your hat? It's not the Kurt Vonnegut asterisk.
No, it's the Ohio State University.
Okay. Yeah. No, the
Buckeye.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
All right, so I'm gonna have to turn off my amazing background for this. I'm a bit sad that I'm gonna have to do this. So let me figure out how to do that real quick.
Don't worry, James. Joy will be coming momentarily for you.
Is that what you're calling it?
Yes, just it is, James.
So, Don, I hate you so goddamn. Don decided that what I needed.
Oh, wait a minute. Now, before you judge this, please open your email for the second part of the gift.
Don decided that I needed a deluxe bingo set with for the kids here. So this was our.
Oh no, it's for you.
No, it's 100% for you, James.
Is that this is 100% for me?
And can you please explain what the second gift is that I sent you via Amazon?
Okay, let me check my email here.
What does it say, James?
What is it? What did it get you?
Don sent a gift. I believe.
What kind of gift, James? What kind of gift?
That's an ebook.
Yes.
Which is convenient. I do have a Paperwhite.
Wonderful.
Perfect.
So that will be useful.
What is the ebook?
The ebook is How to Win at Bingo: Cheap Hacks and Hints, Tips and Tricks to help you increase your odds of winning. And the picture, the fellow who's on the cover is in front of like a snowball, like a USB mic. Like he couldn't be any less official if he tried.
Right,
so good.
right.
We erroneously thought, and thank you, Don, for correcting us. We erroneously thought that there could not have been any strategy to bingo, and that the people sniping over bingo were only sniping about whether or not someone paid off the bingo caller or whatever it is that it takes you to cheat. But Don has provided James with a strategy guide.
Absolutely.
and so that James can know more about the sport that he so loves to talk about.
Yes.
Bingo.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
I'm too. And to be honest, the reason why people hate bingo is because they don't know how to play it. Just like, when you gamble like in poker or blackjack, it's like, oh, it's just all like, no. It's not like that at all. James, I wanted to make sure you had ability to get your first bingo win against Edith and Edna, that I wanted you to have every ability and every chance you can have that you should be prepared for. Just like when I played poker, I read as many poker books as possible to be prepared for others. James, I feel like you were too down on yourself when it came to bingo. So therefore, I wanted to make sure that you have hours upon hours of practice now with your new bingo cards and your bingo machine. And I'm sure that ebook is going to give you many, minutes, hours of
however long it is.
Joy.
Yeah. I would also say we were talking about constructing an opera. I can't imagine a better opera than James, newcomer to the bingo scene, taking the bingo world. But it's like the Queen's Gambit, but bingo.
Come on, James, and think about it. How wonderful would it be for you to go into that bingo hall again, right? And you get bingo, and you just you set up, you go bingo, and you just taunt Edith or Edna with that bingo card with your marker that bounced, and you got it on their line or four corners, whatever. It's just taunt them in their face. Just taunt them. It's like, look, I showed you, you two old hags. I showed you that I could beat you at this game. That to me, I just picture that. That is what I hope for, James. Just for the sheer moment, the one time in your life that you could go up to these depending wearing just horrible women who have just taunted you for all these years, and just I want you to get over your national nightmare, James.
Holy crap, Dusty. And bingo became his name-o. How James Pekosnik stormed the bingo world 069 at a time.
Dusty, you unmute yourself this second.
Yes.
I cannot even right now. I am.
I'm going to write this ebook,
about
James, and I'm going to take a cover photo of myself with my microphone. I'll sell tens of copies. Tens.
Literally dozens of us will buy this
I'm
book.
surprised you was that guy when he got a notification that somebody bought his book.
He went straight to his wife and was like, see?
Now it's about to take off at any time. When it rains, it pours.
Bingoist is now... Yeah, Adam Bryant asks, is Bingoist the new Patreon level? Yes, it is. It's the people who buy the year subscription are now referred to as the Bingoists. Because it is in fact going to be under $350. It's less. There is a discount if you go to Patreon to do the year subscription. So it is actually less than $350. So I mean, it is less than you are coming in to pay normally. So yeah.
I also feel like my gift has put me into the North Dakota Hall of Fame.
Well, I mean, we can only bring one entrant in a year, and Damian Barrett's making a real strong case.
Yeah, but I came in strong at the end. Damian also slandered James too. I would never do that.
This is like, do we care more about season-long production or clutch production at the end? This is a tough conversation.
Is this the Julian Edelman conversation?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Don has the playoff pedigree, but what has he been doing during the regular season?
He's been slacking off and doing absolutely nothing, but this is a fine stack of bingo cards, I will say. That is... This is about as close to speechless as I get on this show. So, with that said, I hope everyone's ready to be playing a game of public assistance, because I can break that out right now, and we can.
Oh Jesus! No, that's not appropriate for the show. We can't.
Not appropriate for anyone.
Also accurate, yes. Well, thank you, Don, for providing my children with something to to do, and providing me with a book just another book for me to have in my Kindle Fire or Kindle paperweight that I ignore. So thank you, Don. I appreciate that. That is quite the Christmas gift. That is going to be it for this episode of Norse Code. Thank you guys so much for coming on. Arif, what do you have to plug?
You can head over to The Athletic, theathletic.com/author/Arif-Hassan. I just wrote a piece about how the Washington game against the Steelers didn't demonstrate why the Steelers are probably an illusory 11-1 team, but the fact that they are one is a concern for them going into the playoffs. I've also got a piece coming up about how to potentially beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I also wrote Players of the Week piece. I also wrote like 8 Mythbusters. It was a busy week for me. But you can head over to my author page. I've got pieces on a bunch of different teams. The Dolphins, the Raiders, the Seahawks, I guess, as well as the Steelers and the Buccaneers coming up that you can head over to. It's probably one of the busiest writing weeks I've had, so there's going to be a lot of stuff over up at The Athletic.
You know, I was just reminded that there was a question for the mailbag that I missed.
Uh-oh.
And I apologize for that because I should be better at this. This is actually a question for Don. So this is kind of a Christmas gift to you, Don. My question actually comes from Damian Barrett, also known as the man who really is trying his best to enter the Norse Code Hall of Fame this year. Says, having run into money trouble following extravagant purchases at Costco and not listening to your advice about Airbnb, your good friends from Norse Code listenership decided to chip in and book James to officiate the wedding. Just how bad would this hypothetical financial trouble need to be before you accepted their help?
Well, Damien, it's a terrible question, but I'll do my best to salvage it. Well, first of all, James is a deacon, right? So
that's right. You got to pay up for that, right?
True story.
Yeah. Yep. So James is a deacon. So I could think of worse things. However, it's going to depend on which book he uses to marry us. So are we talking about the Book of Satan? Are we talking about a Bible? Are we talking about, the Book of Dead? Right?
Jesse
the bingo book.
Yeah, Jesse said the bingo book.
Bingo book. That could work. That could work also. How desperate? I mean,
Necronomicon.
Ooh, yeah.
He could share accommodation with a reef for on the accommodation.
I'm thinking how bad. I think it also depends on how badly James needs the money, depending on how broke he goes playing bingo. So that's why I'm thinking to myself, by giving him this book, that takes care of any of his shortfalls, and I should be able to, by me helping him doing that, he's not going to be stressed for money. Now, as far as Costco,
the question, it's about how stressed for money you are based off of all your Costco purchases.
Well, first of all, mind you, I am an executive Costco member now. Remember,
yeah, you get money back.
I do get 2% back.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So my $5,000 trip, I still get $100 back. Okay. So hey, right.
Right.
So that's my privilege right there. Boy, how desperate would I need to have James become my?
I just envision a situation where you've spent too much money on things like wood chips, or not chips, the pellets.
The pellets.
Yep, the pellets and the.
Well, so he'll spend
cups.
too much money on the pellets, but his wife will spend too much money on charcoal, trying to bring back the magic that she had once tasted.
True story.
Before all of this had happened.
Lucky for both of us that they don't sell either, so that's not going to happen.
They don't sell charcoal at your Costco?
They don't sell charcoal at Costco nor wood pellets, online or in store.
That's wild to me.
Yeah. However, if we are going to go broke and have to call
bring
James,
back the fire in the relationship. Jesse.
If we were to go broke, it would be at the Hawaii Costco, which we found out sells completely different things than Costco's saying here in the main states.
Can you get Hawaii Costco stuff shipped to you into Ohio? Or you're in Ohio, right?
That's a great question. But they got like fresh poke. They have like fresh salmon, tuna. They do sushi. They do like literally everything you think Hawaii wise. They sell it right there. Hawaiian coffee, like huge bags of Hawaiian coffee and such.
Oh, dope.
So yes, when likely scenario, Damien is right. We are going to go broke in Hawaii, just at the Costco alone. So this is a good question. How desperate? Well, I love her so much that if it means I have to have James marry us, I'm willing to go that route.
Oh,
That's almost touching for somebody without a soul. Good job.
Yeah. Well, all I ask is that at our dinner, I don't want human flesh. That's all I care about. Even if Arif cooks it, I don't want any human flesh.
Well, fair enough. We'll respect your dietary restrictions for the most part.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you say that now. Well, thank you guys so much to everyone who has joined this call. Thank you guys so much. Stick around for just a moment afterwards. We'll talk for just a little bit, but want to thank you guys so much for listening. Please, if you are interested in joining this sort of madness for bonus episodes or something like that, you can head over to patreon.com. Yes, it's pronounced patreon.com/NorseCode and join there. $3.50 a month does in fact keep the Loch Ness Monster at bay and helps us keep the lights on and do stuff like the Zoom calls and everything. We'll actually be doing a live watch along for the Lions game, so please check that out. That'll be the last week of the year. I believe that's last week of the year if the Vikings don't make the playoffs. I believe that's January 4th, although I could be mistaken for that, but I believe that's on January 4th at 12 Central, noon Central. So again, thank you guys so much, and please remember, for Rafe, my name is James. Please
January
remember
3rd. January
3rd. Well, there you go. Please remember that all things are in fact possible through the power of Ben DiNucci. And we will be back next week. Norse Code is the largest and only division of Norse Code LLC. You can find Norse Code on the Daily Norseman, SB Nation's Vikings blog at dailynorseman.com. You can also find it on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever fine podcasts are aggregated. Our Vikings blogger extraordinaire and generally useful human is Arif Hassan, and he can be found on Twitter at Arif Hassan NFL. I am your producer and co-host, and my name is James Pagashnik. You can find me at the show's official Twitter feed at NorseCodeDN. If you'd like to donate a few bucks to the show, you can make your one-time donation at paypal.me/NorseCode, or a recurring monthly contribution can be made by visiting patreon.com/NorseCode. Any questions or comments that won't fit in a tweet can also be sent to norsecodepodcast@gmail.com. On behalf of the Norse Code staff, we thank you so much for listening.
Our formula is this. We go out, we hit people in the mouth.